Let's get started.
Indeed.
Blueprint for Black Power, Chapter 24 continues the Black consumer and the economics of Afrocentrism. We started off pages 609 to 620. And just to give a little bit of my take on it, I was really interested in how Dr. Amos Wilson broke down the history of the Native Americans throughout their time and possibly still continuing now of just pretty much having ownership and just making the best of what they have, because we all know through history, I mean, they've been wiped out a lot through, the conquistadors and the Europeans, and, smallpox. And when they used to own, or be the majority, now they're a very small, almost extinct ethnicity. Still, they were able to make some kind of impact. And their way of economic empowerment, I mean, it's just very interesting. Like, they have their own radio shows. They've daggone created, real estate and developed that. And I think one of the things that really I admired the most was it was a quote from the Cherokee chief, Wilma Mankiller. He said, there has emerged a consensus in Indian country that if we're going to see economic growth, we're going to have to do it ourselves. And tribes have to come to realization that federal resources are going to continue to decline no matter who is in the White House. So they pretty much came to a point that, the government is going to be the government regardless. What are we going to do, basically, for each other? And yeah, I just thought, that was a good section to really, dive deep into. And then we go into, to our side, Black tourism in the industry. And there was another section, I think, the power of refusal. And these sections also inspired me the 3 questions that I created. But let's start off with question number 1. Communal ownership is the ownership or property where each of its members have a right to use it or a portion of it. Question: what are some properties that Africans can have communal ownership of? Second question: what about the BAIO? And when I thought of this, I was like, what kind of ownership or property can we have where each member has a equal share, or we can all use it? Because like when I'm thinking of communal ownership, right, I think of community gardens, where if you're in a community, you could plant, you could take fruit or whatever, because you live in that neighborhood, you live in that area, so therefore, this is our garden. Your garden's my garden. It's our garden. But
it's an excellent,
yeah, and in other properties, what I'm thinking of, one that I thought of, if it was, go ahead.
I was about to say, besides the country club shit.
Besides the country club.
I was about to say, no, like I was about to say, like a pool, like a lot of the recreational facilities.
That's what I was thinking too.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, recreational facilities. Yeah, that'll definitely be a good idea, because there's like so many activities that they have, at recreational centers, and that's where you could like have events and host things and stuff.
And ownership will increase engagement and such.
Another thing, which brings into the first question, was reverse discrimination. Didn't know it was a term, but from the way that Amos Wilson described it, thus, even when Black entrepreneurs sell the same goods and services at or below competitive prices, civil rights, religious, and liberal American political propaganda have succeeded in making many Black consumers feel that to support a business because it is Black owned is a form of self segregation, reverse discrimination. Is ant Reverse discrimination is anti-American, racist, sinful, or morally unacceptable. Many Black consumers may feel guilty for consciously discriminating in favor of Black-owned businesses, despite the fact that all other ethnic groups consumers engage in these practices, vice versa, their own group-owned businesses relative to those owned by Blacks. So, when we go back to the questions, is reverse discrimination still existent today here in America? Does it exist in Africa in some ways? Any thoughts?
Well, usually when that term is used, it means that we're discriminate the people who are usually discriminated against are discriminating against others.
Hmm.
But in this situation, it's like I think he's saying that it's us discriminating us discriminating against our own
Right.
because we don't want to seem like we're discriminating against others.
Right.
So we prefer to yeah. So yeah, that took me a minute to because I hadn't seen it used that way. But I think it's more of the as the saying goes, the grass is greener, the ice is colder,
Mm-hmm.
the sugar is sweeter on the other end, on the other
Mm-hmm.
side. So I think it's more of that
It,
than I don't want to seem like I'm
right.
I won't use white, and that does happen, but I think it's more of that being dominated mentally to think that everybody else is better than our own.
I'm thinking
Um,
too, it it kind of reminds me, I guess, an analogy of like a relationship or so. Like okay, it's maybe a toxic environment or so, and then the person's like deciding to self improve or kind of turn the other leaf and reinvent themselves, and then the person that is toxic, I guess, is like, oh, so you're just gonna leave me? You're just gonna better yourself, focus on you, like. And then possibly that person might turn back like, yeah, that is kind of selfish of me. Like I guess not totally, but
It's
in
like
some way.
gaslighting.
Right. There we go. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. It's like gaslighting. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh wow,
Like
like, uh-huh.
they discriminate against doing something for yourself when your products or the things that you are buying are geared towards you and you feeling guilty for using something that is just made for you,
Mm-hmm.
by your own people.
Yeah. That's definitely how I see it. But I don't know. I guess to say, does it still exist?
I think it. When I think when we have internal discussions,
Mm-hmm.
amongst within the group,
Mm-hmm.
you see it when someone will say, "Well, you know, I'm not going to discriminate against them because they're not black. I'm not going."
Right.
You'll hear somebody get huffy and puffy
Huffy and puffy,
with
yeah.
this huffy and puffy with just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't want that done to me, so I wouldn't do that or what. And just that
Mm.
that kind of confused logic, and
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely heard that. But to me, that yes, I'll say yes to the question, but I think it's more of you know the ice is cold or whatever somebody else does is better than us. I think there's still a lot of that happening.
Right. Yeah, I mean, even like not with even with buying products, I was just thinking too, like just with politics or justice in general. I'm thinking maybe Black Lives Matter could be an example, because at first it was about us, but then all of a sudden all lives matter came, and then blue lives matter, and I guess
Oh yeah,
maybe that could be an example of how it took that not perception, but the agenda of what Black Lives Matter was for, what the purpose was, to now just being about everybody.
but that's a little different because you do, but I
Mm-hmm.
guess we consider them to be coons, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
to do that. But that's mostly other people uh taking the message and twisting it around and pretending like
Yeah.
that's what we're doing, as opposed to us doing that.
Yeah.
Most of us don't do for that example, don't do that with that overall message.
Mm.
So I think it's a little bit different there.
Right. Okay. Okay. I was thinking another example that I had too, like, what about the state that African countries are in, with their government? Because
Mm.
we've talked about in the past how a lot of the leaders are heavily influenced by, the Western way of doing things, and pretty much their whole way of operating their country is, the they're on top, they're in this class, and they want to make sure their needs are met and not necessarily the people's. Like, could that be a way of reverse discrimination, because you're denying, your citizens needs, and therefore they're going to look towards, okay, well, I want to be America because I want that. Like, could that be a
Yeah,
way
I
of
think.
reverse discrimination?
Well, I think it's kind of some of that might be the ice is colder on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
and some of that might be just I want power, and the only way I'll have power is if I suppress my people and
Okay. Okay.
follow with the yeah. So that's a whole, I think it's a a level of psychotic behavior.
Psychotic behavior. Gotcha. Yeah.
And and there's some with self-hatred that
Mm-hmm.
you look at your own people as less than, and you look lovingly at the West.